Hey guys, welcome to Epic Explored. Today's story is The Last Passenger. Let's begin. The Man on the Midnight Train. New York City never truly slept. Even after midnight, the streets glowed beneath thousands of neon signs. Taxi headlights painted yellow streaks across rain-soaked pavement, and the distant echo of police sirens blended into the city's endless heartbeat. For Ethan Carter, however, the city had become painfully predictable. At 29 years old, Ethan worked as an investigative journalist for a small digital newspaper struggling to survive in an age of social media and instant news. Every day was filled with interviews, deadlines, rejected articles, and disappointing paychecks. His editor constantly reminded him that readers no longer cared about truth. "They want drama," his editor would say. "Give them something they can't stop clicking." But Ethan believed real stories still mattered. Every night after leaving the office in Manhattan, he boarded the last downtown subway train. The ride took nearly 40 minutes before he reached his apartment in Brooklyn. The midnight train always carried the same strange collection of people. A tired nurse asleep against the window. A young musician protecting his guitar more carefully than his own backpack. An elderly woman knitting without ever looking at the needles. And one mysterious old man. The old man always sat in the exact same seat. Second car, left side. Last row, gray coat, black leather gloves, dark brown hat. No phone, no book, no music. He simply watched the passing darkness beyond the subway windows. Night after night, week after week, month after month. At first, Ethan ignored him. Then curiosity slowly replaced indifference. One evening, Ethan accidentally boarded the train from another station. The old man was already sitting there, exactly where he always was, as if he had been waiting. The train doors closed, the lights flickered once. For the first time, the old man looked directly into Ethan's eyes. His blue eyes were unusually calm, not frightened, not friendly, just observant. Ethan nodded politely. The old man gave a tiny smile before looking away again. Nothing more happened, but Ethan couldn't forget those eyes. A week later, heavy rain flooded parts of Manhattan. The subway was delayed nearly 30 minutes. Passengers complained. Some left. Others cursed the transit system. When the train finally arrived, Ethan stepped inside. Again, the old man was there, dry, perfectly calm, as though he had never experienced the storm outside. Ethan finally gathered enough courage to speak. "Excuse me, I think we take this train every night." The old man smiled. "I know." His voice was low and steady. "You noticed?" Ethan laughed awkwardly. "I guess I did." The old man returned to silence. The conversation ended there. Over the following weeks, their interactions became slightly longer. They never exchanged personal information, never discussed work, never asked about family. Instead, they spoke about ordinary things: weather, books, history, old jazz music. Sometimes the old man quoted philosophers Ethan had never heard of. Other times he predicted little things before they happened. "The woman with the red umbrella will miss her stop," she did. "The musician will forget his guitar tonight." He almost did. "The train will stop between stations." 5 minutes later it did. Coincidences. At least that's what Ethan told himself. Until one Friday night. The subway was nearly empty. Only 6 passengers remained inside the car. The old man slowly reached into his coat pocket. He removed an old cream-colored envelope. Its edges had turned yellow with age. There was no stamp, no address, only Ethan's name, written in elegant handwriting. The old man handed it over. "If I don't return tomorrow, Pooh." He paused. "Open this." Ethan stared at the envelope. "What is it?" "A story." "What kind of story?" "The kind people kill to keep buried." Before Ethan could ask another question, the train stopped. The doors opened. The old man stood. He tipped his hat politely, then disappeared into the darkness of the station. That was the last time Ethan ever saw him. At least, that's what he believed. Ethan Carter barely remembered how he got home. His feet carried him through the quiet streets of Brooklyn while his mind replayed the old man's final words over and over again. "If I don't return tomorrow, open this." The cream-colored envelope felt strangely heavy inside his coat pocket. By the time he climbed the narrow stairs to his apartment, it was nearly 1:30 in the morning. Rain tapped softly against the windows as he unlocked the door. His apartment was small but comfortable. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with history books, crime reports, and old newspapers. His desk was buried beneath notebooks, camera equipment, half-empty coffee cups, and unfinished investigations. Normally, Ethan would collapse into bed after work. Tonight was different. He removed the envelope and placed it gently on the desk. For several minutes, he simply stared at it. The handwriting was beautiful, elegant, carefully written. His name appeared alone on the front. No address, no date, no explanation. Finally, he took a deep breath and carefully broke the old wax seal. Inside were 4 items. The first was a faded black-and-white photograph. It showed a young man standing beside a smiling woman outside a brownstone house somewhere in New York. The young man's face looked strangely familiar. It took Ethan several seconds to realize why. The young man was the old man, only 30 or 40 years younger. The second item was a brass key. Old, heavy, its surface was scratched with age. A tiny number had been engraved into one side. 317. The third item was a folded piece of paper. On it was nothing but an address. 42 Willow Street, Brooklyn. The final item was a handwritten letter. Ethan unfolded it carefully. "If you are reading this, then I have disappeared. Do not try to find me. By the time you open this letter, someone may already be watching you. If that happens, pretend none of this exists. Burn everything. Forget my face. Forget my name. But if your curiosity is stronger than your fear, go to the address. Take the key. Open locker 317. Everything begins there. Trust no one, especially anyone who already knows my name." Ethan read the letter 3 times. His heartbeat quickened. Who was M? Why would someone leave this to a complete stranger? Was this some elaborate prank, or something much worse? He reached for his laptop. Within minutes, he searched old newspaper archives. Nothing. He searched missing persons databases. Nothing. He searched the address. 42 Willow Street still existed, an abandoned warehouse near the East River. He leaned back in his chair. The old man had never once mentioned his name, never spoken about his past, never explained why he rode the same subway every single night. Yet somehow, he had chosen Ethan. Outside, thunder rolled across the city. His phone suddenly vibrated, unknown number. Ethan hesitated before answering. Hello? Silence. Only static. Then a calm voice whispered, You opened it. Ethan froze. Who is this? Another pause. You should have burned it. The line went dead. Ethan immediately called back. The number did not exist. A cold chill ran down his spine. Someone knew, someone had been waiting. He rushed to the apartment window. The street below was almost empty, except for one black sedan parked across the road. Its headlights were off. Its engine was running. Inside, he could barely make out the silhouette of someone sitting behind the steering wheel, watching his apartment. Ethan stepped away from the window. His instincts as a journalist told him one thing. He was no longer investigating a story. He had become part of it. He grabbed his camera, notebook, flashlight, and slipped the brass key into his pocket. The warehouse on Willow Street could wait until morning. But one question echoed through his mind all night. Who was the mysterious man, and why had he trusted a stranger with secrets worth dying for? As dawn slowly broke over New York City, Ethan had no idea that within the next 24 hours he would uncover the first piece of a conspiracy buried for more than 30 years. The first rays of sunlight crept through Ethan Carter's apartment window. But sleep had never come. The mysterious phone call haunted him. You should have burned it. Someone knew he had opened the envelope. Someone had been watching. By 7:30 in the morning, Ethan had already packed his camera, laptop, notebook, flashlight, and the old brass key marked 317. He left his apartment, locking the door behind him. As he stepped onto the sidewalk, he glanced across the street. The black sedan from the previous night was gone. Or so he thought. 2 blocks later, he noticed it again, parked quietly outside a coffee shop. The windows were heavily tinted. Its engine idled softly. Ethan slowed his pace. The sedan remained still. He continued walking. A minute later, the car pulled away. Not fast, not slow, just enough to stay behind him. His heart began to race. Was he imagining things? Or was someone really following him? Instead of heading directly to Willow Street, Ethan made 3 random turns through downtown Brooklyn. He entered a bookstore, left through another exit, crossed 2 busy intersections, stopped for coffee. Each time the black sedan appeared somewhere nearby, always at a distance, always watching. Now he was certain. Someone was following him. By mid-morning, Ethan finally reached Willow Street. The neighborhood had long been forgotten by the city. Most warehouses were abandoned. Rust covered the loading docks. Broken windows reflected the gray morning sky. Wild weeds pushed through cracked concrete. The address matched the paper inside the envelope. 42 Willow Street. The building looked abandoned for decades. A faded sign hung crooked above a large metal door. No security cameras, no lights, no people. Only silence. Ethan pushed against the heavy entrance. Locked. He walked around the side of the warehouse until he discovered a narrow service door hidden behind overgrown vines. To his surprise, it wasn't locked. The rusty hinges groaned as he stepped inside. Dust floated through thin beams of sunlight, breaking through holes in the roof. The enormous warehouse was almost empty. Old wooden crates, broken machinery, collapsed shelves, nothing else. He checked the address again. This had to be the place. Then he noticed something, a narrow staircase leading underground. The basement smelled damp and forgotten. Water dripped steadily somewhere in the darkness. His flashlight illuminated rows of old metal lockers, hundreds of them, each covered in rust, numbers barely visible beneath decades of dust. Locker 112, 178, 241, 305. His breathing grew heavier. Finally, 317. The brass key fit perfectly. His hand trembled as he turned it. Click. The lock released. The metal door slowly creaked open. Inside wasn't money, or weapons, or jewels. Instead, there was a small leather briefcase, wrapped carefully in waterproof cloth, and resting on top, another envelope. This one simply read, "If you found this, they are already too late." Ethan carefully lifted the briefcase. It was surprisingly heavy. Before opening it, he heard something upstairs, footsteps, several of them, heavy boots, more than one person. Someone had entered the warehouse. Voices echoed faintly through the empty building. "Search every room. He can't be far." Ethan's blood ran cold. They weren't looking for the old man anymore. They were looking for him. He quietly closed locker 317 and grabbed the briefcase. There was only one way out. A narrow hallway at the back of the basement. He switched off his flashlight and moved through the darkness as silently as possible. Behind him, the footsteps grew louder. Metal doors slammed open one after another. Someone shouted, "Check downstairs!" Flashlights swept across the basement entrance. Ethan slipped into the narrow hallway just seconds before the first beam of light reached locker 317. His pulse thundered in his ears. The hallway ended at an old steel door. Locked. He searched desperately, no handle, no keypad. Then he noticed another keyhole smaller than the lockers. Without thinking, he inserted the brass key again. The mechanism clicked. The door slowly opened. Fresh air rushed inside. It led to an abandoned subway maintenance tunnel beneath Brooklyn. Ethan stepped inside and pulled the door shut behind him. Seconds later, fists pounded violently against the other side. "They went this way! Find him!" Ethan ran. The tunnel stretched endlessly into darkness, illuminated only by emergency lights installed decades ago. Behind him, the voices echoed through the underground passage. He had escaped, but only barely. Clutching the mysterious briefcase tightly against his chest, Ethan realized one terrifying truth. Whatever secrets it contained, powerful people were willing to kill to get them. And now, those secrets belonged to him. The maintenance tunnel stretched for nearly half a mile beneath Brooklyn. Ethan didn't stop running until the voices behind him faded into silence. His lungs burned. His legs felt heavy. Finally, he reached an old emergency exit hidden behind a rusted steel ladder. With all his strength, he pushed the hatch open. Fresh morning air rushed into his face. He climbed out into a quiet alley several blocks away from Willow Street. No one was there. He looked in every direction before quickly walking away. The leather briefcase never left his hand. An hour later, Ethan arrived at the small office of the Chronicle, the independent newspaper where he worked. Most of the staff hadn't arrived yet. The newsroom was silent except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of printers warming up. He locked himself inside the newspaper's archive room. It was the safest place he knew. Only he and the editor had keys. He placed the briefcase on a large wooden table. For several moments he simply stared at it. Everything that had happened since the old man disappeared felt unreal. The envelope, the phone call, the warehouse, the men searching for him. None of it made sense. Not yet. Taking a deep breath, Ethan carefully unlatched the briefcase. The hinges opened with a soft metallic click. Inside, everything was arranged with military precision. There were 5 thick folders, a portable cassette recorder, 3 cassette tapes, a small notebook bound in black leather, a faded city map covered with handwritten markings, and one final envelope. Across its front, in the same elegant handwriting, were the words, "Read this last." Ethan set the envelope aside. He opened the first folder. His eyes widened. Every page carried the same red stamp. Classified, the documents described a covert government operation that officially did not exist. Many names had been blacked out with thick black ink, but one name appeared again and again. Michael Harrison. Ethan froze. Michael. The letter in the envelope had been signed only with the letter M. Was the mysterious old man Michael Harrison? He searched further. A paper clipped to the inside cover showed an old employee identification card.
The photograph was unmistakable, 35 years younger. Clean-shaven, confident, the same piercing blue eyes. The old man had once worked for a federal intelligence agency. The second folder contained photographs. Some showed meetings between politicians and wealthy businessmen. Others showed cargo ships arriving late at night. Wooden crates were unloaded under heavy security. No company logos, no customs officers, no records. On the back of each photograph, Michael had written dates, locations, and short notes. One photograph simply read, "This shipment changed everything." Another read, "3 witnesses disappeared the next morning." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. The third folder contained newspaper clippings. Every article described mysterious accidents. Journalists killed in car crashes. Judges suffering sudden heart attacks. Business executives disappearing without explanation. Each article had one thing in common. Every victim had been investigating the same people shown in the photograph.
Coincidence no longer seemed possible. Someone had been eliminating anyone who got too close. The fourth folder was filled with handwritten reports. Michael had documented everything: meetings, License plate numbers, telephone conversations, bank transfers, secret warehouses, safe houses, even names of corrupt officials. Every page ended with the same sentence. Trust the evidence, never the badge. Ethan reached for the cassette recorder. It was old, but still worked. He inserted the first tape. A burst of static filled the room. Then a man's voice spoke. Calm. Older. It was Michael. If you're hearing this, I failed. The room suddenly felt colder. My name is Michael Harrison. I spent 23 years gathering evidence against an organization that doesn't officially exist. They call themselves the Circle. They are not a gang. They are not a government agency. They are something far more dangerous. They influence elections. They erase investigations. They buy judges. They own companies. And when necessary, they make people disappear. The recording crackled for a moment. If you're listening, Ethan nearly dropped the recorder. Michael knew his name. I chose you because you never stopped asking questions. I watched your work for 2 years. You remind me of the journalist I once failed to protect. If they know you have these files, they will never stop hunting you. The tape ended abruptly. Silence filled the archive room. Ethan sat motionless. Someone had been watching him long before they ever met on the subway. The old man hadn't chosen him by chance. He had planned everything. A loud knock echoed against the archive room door. Ethan? It was his editor. You in there? Ethan quickly closed the briefcase. Yeah, just organizing old files. His editor sounded impatient. There's someone here asking for you. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. Who? He didn't give a name. He says he's an old friend. Ethan had never told anyone about Michael. He had no old friend waiting downstairs. Slowly, he looked toward the archive room window. Across the street, the same black sedan was parked outside. This time, the driver wasn't hiding. A man in a dark suit stood beside the car, staring directly at the newspaper building. Then, he smiled. Not a friendly smile, a warning. Ethan suddenly understood. The Circle had found him, and they were no longer watching from the shadows. They were ready to make their first move. Ethan's heart pounded as he stepped away from the archive room window. The man beside the black sedan was gone. Only the car remained. His editor knocked again. Ethan, he's still waiting. Ethan carefully slid Michael Harrison's files back into the briefcase and locked it. Whatever happened next, those documents could not fall into the wrong hands. He opened the archive room door. Where is he? His editor pointed toward the reception area. He said he'd wait downstairs. Ethan hurried through the newsroom. The reception desk was empty. The security guard looked confused. The gentleman just left, the guard said. He asked me to give you this. The guard handed Ethan a small white business card. There was no company name, no phone number, only a single black circle printed in the center. On the back, someone had written, "You have until midnight." That afternoon, Ethan visited the only person he believed he could trust, retired FBI agent Daniel Brooks. Brooks had spent decades investigating organized crime before retiring under mysterious circumstances. When Ethan placed Michael's photograph on the table, Brooks turned pale. "I haven't seen this face in 30 years. You knew him?" Brooks nodded slowly. "We worked together. You thought he was dead?" "So did everyone." Ethan explained everything: the subway rides, the envelope, the warehouse, the briefcase, and the recordings. Brooks listened without interrupting. When Ethan finished, the old agent sighed heavily. "You've just inherited the most dangerous investigation in America." "The Circle?" Brooks looked toward the window before answering. "They've existed for decades. They don't care about money. They care about control. If Michael trusted you, then he believed you could finish what he started." Brooks opened a locked cabinet and removed a small metal box. Inside was a flash drive. "I've been waiting years for someone to bring me Michael's files. This contains the final piece." That evening, Ethan returned to his apartment. Using an old offline computer, he copied every document, every photograph, every audio recording, and every piece of evidence from Michael's briefcase and Brooks's flash drive. The truth was even darker than he imagined. The Circle had bribed officials, manipulated investigations, silenced journalists, and destroyed countless lives. Michael had spent 23 years collecting proof. He knew he would never survive long enough to expose it himself. That was why he had chosen Ethan. Not because Ethan was the smartest reporter, but because he never stopped searching for the truth. At exactly 11:45 p.m., Ethan boarded the same midnight subway train. The second car, left side, last row, Michael's seat. The train felt strangely familiar. Almost every seat was empty. As the train entered the tunnel, the lights flickered. A man in a dark suit walked into the car, then another, and another. 3 men slowly surrounded Ethan. "The briefcase," one of them said calmly. "You've caused enough trouble." Ethan smiled. "I don't have it." The tallest man stepped closer. "Then where is it?" Ethan looked directly into his eyes. "Every major news organization in the country has it." The man's expression changed for the first time. "What?" "An hour ago, I scheduled every file to be released automatically. If I disappear, the whole world sees everything." Silence filled the subway car. The train continued through the darkness. The men exchanged nervous glances. For the first time, they weren't in control. One of them reached for Ethan before he could move. The train suddenly stopped. Police lights flashed through the windows. The doors opened. Federal agents flooded the platform. "Federal agents! Nobody move!" The 3 men tried to run. They never made it. Within seconds, they were in handcuffs. Daniel Brooks stepped onto the train with a small team of investigators. He smiled. "You were right, Michael. He was the right choice." 6 months later, the Circle no longer existed. Its leaders had been arrested. Corrupt officials resigned. Secret financial records became public. Families finally learned the truth about loved ones who had disappeared decades earlier. Michael Harrison's name was officially cleared. He was recognized as the whistleblower who sacrificed everything to expose one of the largest criminal conspiracies in modern American history. One quiet autumn evening, Ethan boarded the midnight train once again. The city outside looked exactly the same. The rain still fell against the windows, The tracks still echoed through the tunnels. He sat in the last seat of the second car, Michael's seat. Across from him sat a young woman holding a notebook. She looked nervous, curious. She glanced at Ethan several times before finally speaking. "I think we take this train every night." Ethan smiled. "I know." For a moment he remembered the old man, his calm blue eyes, his quiet voice, the envelope that had changed everything. As the train rolled into the darkness, Ethan reached into his coat pocket. Inside was a brand new cream-colored envelope. Blank. Waiting. Because every generation needs someone willing to protect the truth. And somewhere on another late-night train, another story was just beginning. The end.